Out of the sands of a desert island, new life emerges from the remnants of the dead. Birthplace to a race of ancient reptiles, its beaches are an inferno, too deadly to linger on, but where the only escape leads past the jaws of a monster. Tiger sharks await the tide of thousands of travelers weary from their ocean crossing. These Pacific green turtles make easy prey. But the turtles have instinct and numbers on their side. Every year, their epic struggle turns this remote and protected speck of sand into nature's war zone. An island strewn with bleached bones makes an eerie cradle for new life. But more green turtles nest here than in any other place on Earth. And every year, it's as if their ancestors call them back. These Pacific green sea turtles are returning to a place that many of them haven't seen since they were born. For some, it's a migration of 2,500 kilometers, 1,500 miles, from their feeding grounds in the warm, shallow waters to the north and northeast of Australia. They may already have been traveling for over a year. Guided by their own magnetic compass and triggered by the urge to breed, sea turtles have been migrating across the seas for over 100 million years. Along the way, males and females find each other and begin the process of courtship. The male's part in this timeless ritual will be over once they have mated with as many females as they can. Then they will return to their feeding grounds. But for females, the battle to bring forth new life is only just beginning. In about a month, they will be ready to go ashore and lay their eggs. Success and survival depend on numbers, so they store enough sperm to lay several clutches over the next 3 months. As they approach their nesting ground, they are probably guided by the distinctive scent of home. Their date with destiny brings them to a remote and protected island at the top of Australia's Great Barrier Reef. There sits a coral and sand cay called Rain Island. Why should this scrap of land attract more green turtles than any other place on Earth? Here at the edge of the continental shelf, tidal currents bring deep, nutrient-rich water up to the surface of the Great Barrier Reef. These rich waters sustain a multitude of marine plankton and fish, more abundant than in most other tropical waters. And the currents that nourish them help disperse their young into the Coral Sea and beyond to the deep Pacific Ocean. It's an ideal place to launch offspring into the world. As surgeonfish dash together to spawn, the water is literally alive. But all this life attracts predators. There's a year-round population of reef sharks that find prey and shelter among Rain Island's coral slopes. And even large open water sharks cruise here, like these courting great hammerheads. But these predators pose little threat to the approaching turtles. They will be spectators and fight for the scraps of slaughter. Later, they'll snatch at the helpless young. But predation isn't the only danger here. The island and its reef offer hazards of a very different kind. In 1844, the British Navy built a beacon tower here to help sailors navigate the treacherous reefs. The island once attracted miners and fishermen, but not for long. Piles of guano bricks are the only remnants from when the island was a rich source of fertilizer, created by centuries of seabird droppings. Today, Rain Island is one of the most significant seabird breeding sites along the entire Great Barrier Reef. Every year, thousands of boobies and frigates fight for living room in the island's barren central depression. Red-tailed tropic birds nest all year round, finding shelter in the natural cliffs and crannies in the island's weathered limestone. For unwary turtles, though, the same rocks are lethal traps, making the island their boneyard as well as their beacon. But nothing will deter them. Soon their ancient pilgrimage will bring each of them face to face with all the perils Rain Island has to offer. Ian Bell is a wildlife research officer with an interest in the turtle's breeding biology.
There we go, there's one there.
Ian is here to study the movements of females between their nesting visits to the island. For now, there are just a handful of Rain's year-round residents, but the breeding females are on their way. Marine biologist Richard Fitzpatrick is here to study the tiger sharks that gather here every year. Much of the ecology of tropical sharks remains a mystery, including their migration patterns. Last year, Richard became the first person on Australia's Great Barrier Reef to satellite tag a tiger shark. After she left Rain Island, Richard tracked her for 3 months until she was caught and killed in a fishing net 1,600 kilometers or 1,000 miles away. To build up a picture of their migration pathways, Richard needs to track more tigers over a longer time, and remote Rain Island is one of the best places to find several together. Just like its land-dwelling namesake, the tiger shark is an elusive predator. Found throughout the world's tropical oceans, tiger sharks can travel as much as 80 kilometers, 50 miles in a day, stopping only to feed. Normally solitary and nomadic, one event that brings them together in numbers is the turtle nesting. And some females are arriving already. This mutilated turtle is probably the victim of an encounter with a tiger. More powerful than fear, the instinct to reproduce will drive them to their fate. In summer, Rain Island is home to tens of thousands of seabirds. Every day, temperatures climb past 40 Celsius or 104 Fahrenheit. But birds have ways to cope. Feathers insulate them from the heat of the sun, and for extra cooling, adult boobies flutter their throats like panting dogs. Chicks must find other ways, seeking shade beneath the parent or amongst the vegetation. Without that shade, chicks resort to sleeping on their beaks and feet to make the most of any cooling breeze. But wherever they go, signs of death are never far away. It might be a sanctuary, but Rain Island is a harsh cradle for new life. Adult birds face their own struggles. Frigate birds are the island's pirates, hovering above the beaches waiting to attack homecoming birds. Frigates either snatch food from them directly or tip them up in the air so that they crash land and throw up their catch. Survival means a struggle for air supremacy. And as the day ends, another struggle is just beginning. In the cool of the evening, turtles emerge from the shallows. Adapted to life in tropical water, their bodies can't cope with the extreme temperatures of the day. The time might be right, but the tide has complicated things, exposing a barrier of rocks and coral. Turtles that pick their time and place more carefully can save precious energy. She may weigh as much as 180 kilos, or 400 pounds. Long-lived and slow-growing, this may be the turtle's first time ashore since she hatched here, perhaps as long as 50 years ago. This will be her first real taste of the force of gravity. It should take just 1 or 2 hours to dig a nest and lay a clutch of eggs. But females have been known to dig several times, taking all night to find just the right sand conditions to lay in. Too dry and the nest will collapse as she digs. Too wet and her eggs will be starved of oxygen. The nesting female digs a wide body pit, then uses her hind flippers to gently excavate a chamber for her eggs. Only when she's satisfied with the chamber will she begin to lay. Her breeding strategy is simple: numbers. She lays between 75 and 200 eggs. If, out of all the clutches she'll lay in her life, just 2 eggs grow and survive to adulthood, she'll have reproduced herself and her mate. She relies on Rain's warm sand to nurture the clutch. If all goes well, it will hatch in 2 to 3 months. In about 13 days, she'll be ready to fill another nest. She may lay several clutches of eggs in any given season and will stay around the island, coming up to lay until she's ready to leave. She could be here for the next 3 months. In 1975, over 14,000 turtles were recorded here in one night. Tonight, there are only around 1,500. Most of what we know of the green turtle's breeding biology comes from studies of those brief visits ashore. The vast majority of their lives, the time spent in the water, goes largely unobserved. Ian Bell hopes to shed some light on that hidden portion of their life cycle. It may be several years before anyone sees them here again, but Ian measures and tags individuals so that their long-term growth rates can be determined. For a look at their movements while they are here, he also attaches a depth logger to their shells, along with an acoustic locator tag. The instruments will reveal the turtle's position in the water and make detailed recordings of her depth. Hopefully, he'll recover the data when she makes her next visit ashore. But a lot can happen in the next 13 days.
Yeah. 2, 1, 2, 3, go.
By sunrise, any turtles still nesting must return to the water before the heat of the day begins to build. But it isn't always easy. Low tide can turn the reef flats into an impenetrable barrier of rugged coral. Seeking the cool relief of the sea, they'll enter the shallows. There they wait in their hundreds, like commuters, for the tide to come and carry them away. But in the meantime, they must share the rocky platform with Raine's reef predators. Reef sharks can easily negotiate these coral shallows. If they're lucky, they'll pick up the scent of a dead turtle. But they're not big enough to threaten a grown adult. The turtle's greatest threat comes from the sun. Turtles still on the island face escalating danger. Powerful and agile in the ocean, their flippers and heavy body are a severe handicap on the race back to the water. Their ability to navigate around obstacles is limited and progress is slow. The longer they take, the more heat they absorb, and with no mechanism for getting rid of it, the more exhausted they become. The island's low cliffs, crevices, and sand become a natural assault course of deadly obstacles. Incapable of moving backwards, any turtle that crawls into a dead end could be trapped for good. But she won't give up. If there's any way to turn and keep going, she will. Even nesting pits become a series of traps that she has to cross before she can escape the hot sun. Any turtle that falls onto her back won't be able to right herself. She is doomed. Near the shore, one turtle trap has ensnared 3 victims in the same morning. Their fate now depends on the race between sun and tide. If they're lucky, they'll be rescued by the rising water. If not, the sun's intensifying heat will gradually kill them. Death in the sand is slow and agonizing. Exhausted and unable to lose heat by sweating or panting, the turtle's brain and body will slowly shut down. There are no land predators to finish her off. She will literally cook in the sun. In the absence of larger scavengers, much smaller creatures must act as the turtle's undertakers. Bacteria feast on the inside, producing gases that bloat the body after just a day or two. Eventually, it will explode and dry out. Some turtles die tragically close to salvation. Tawny nurse sharks soon pick up the scent of rotting carcasses close to the waterline. If they're patient, the tide will bring them what they want. As sad as the turtle's fate may be, for the sharks, it's an opportunity too good to miss. They may even rely on this seasonal bonus to build themselves up for their own breeding cycle. But local tawnies and reef sharks aren't the only ones to benefit. The same annual bonus is probably what attracts tiger sharks to the area. As more turtles die on their island, their scent drifts out in slicks and attracts the great ocean predators. Any nesting turtle leaving the island at this time will need all her energy to find a place to rest and hide. Attracted by the smell of death, a tiger has spotted live prey. Despite the difficulties on land, turtles are highly maneuverable in the water, capable of bursts of up to 32 kilometers or 20 miles per hour. The tiger soon loses interest. A long chase would be a waste of energy when close at hand she senses easier meat. The tide has floated one of the island's dead turtles out into deeper water. Although it has excellent eyesight, the tiger's sense of smell can detect blood in the water from almost 2 kilometers, over a mile away. And the slick from a rotting turtle is impossible to miss. Tiger sharks are cautious and seldom attack immediately. It takes its time, making sure the prey can offer it no harm. The tiger isn't a fussy eater. Its huge mouth and tin opener style teeth enable the tiger to take almost any food it finds. While it hasn't evolved to prey specifically on turtles, it's one of the few sharks that can. Opportunities like this are what bring these monsters back to Rain Island every summer. Or so Richard Fitzpatrick believes. To find out more, he and his team are preparing to catch a tiger by the tail. So far, only reef sharks are responding to the baited hook they have out. The plan is to hook and haul a mature shark up to the boat, so Richard can attach a tracking tag. But it takes more than bait. It takes patience.
There she is.
Richard hopes to discover the migration patterns of these mysterious monsters. To do so, he must swim right up to one. They've hooked a big one, around 200 kilos, 440 pounds of angry shark. The thrashing tiger won't be harmed by the barbless hook, but she could easily kill Richard if she escapes, which she does. Thankfully, the only victim is the hook.
A bigger hook, a bigger rope, and a bigger boat.
Not much you can do about that, isn't it?
The next one is even bigger, 3.3 meters, nearly 11 feet of mature female. Once she's held at the back of the boat, Richard has to get close enough to tail rope her. Even though she's on the hook, her powerful tail could still break his bones. And roping her takes more than one attempt. Success at last. Once the shark is held by the tail and body roped, a strange thing happens. She becomes as docile as a lamb. No one is sure why this happens, but without it, the job of tagging large sharks would be much more dangerous. Richard has to work fast to fix the tag to her dorsal fin before she suffers too much stress. It's a radio transmitter, designed to send its position to a tracking satellite every time its antenna breaks the surface. It's powered to operate for up to a year and should open a new window into the world of these great ocean predators.
I'll just confirm that sat tag number 2. Yep. 37111. Yep, I think. Cool.
She offers no resistance as Richard gently releases her. She's still a little groggy, so he'll swim alongside her to make sure she recovers from the ordeal. These sharks are a vital part of the reef ecosystem, but no one's sure if they're loyal to this area or merely passing through. Could overfishing elsewhere upset the balance of life here at Rain Island? We'll only know when we understand their migration patterns. For the purpose of the study, Richard names her Ripley and wishes her luck on her journeys. Now her movements are being observed from space. Will she stick around for the rest of the turtle nesting season? It's a good bet she will. With thousands of turtles homing in on nature's war zone, there's no shortage of food. It's just a matter of time before a live turtle feels the tiger's crunching bite. Death will be as savage underwater as it is lingering on land. It's late summer. Rain's beaches are a no-man's land of pits, tracks, and dead bodies. But nothing will stop the turtles, not even serious injury. It's unlikely that this turtle could have dug a good egg chamber with just one hind flipper. The missing limb also slows her progress across the sand and puts her at further risk from the baking sun. Even females with recent injuries have no choice but to return to the sea where they were attacked. It may be full of predators, but the water is the only thing that will save them from the scorching heat. Turtles exhausted and weakened by their long, hot journey are even more vulnerable to a tiger shark. For many of the reef's residents, safety lies in numbers or strategic alliances. Anemone fish and their eggs find refuge among masses of stinging tentacles that discourage predators. The goby is wary and ever vigilant. In return for accommodation, it provides its roommate, a blind goby shrimp, with a reliable early warning system. At night, danger is even harder to see, especially when it comes in the camouflage shape of a stonefish. Or the disarming beauty of a stalking lionfish. To ensure an undisturbed sleep, parrotfish envelop themselves in a cloak of mucus, concealing them from a shark's powerful sense of smell. Nesting turtles make their journeys to and from the beach during the hours of darkness, so this is when they're most at risk of attack. During the day, many rest on the reef and try to avoid detection. Their shell doesn't just provide a protective shield, its marbled pattern is also good camouflage among the coral, crypts and crags. They can stay submerged for up to an hour, but eventually they have to leave the protection of their resting places and come up for air. Unless there's an immediate threat though, they never seem to hurry. Researcher Ian Bell's turtle tags are yielding some early results. Females seem to stay around the reef between nesting visits. At night, they rest on the bottom for most of the time, but come into shallower water during the day. This may be a defensive strategy.
It's over and about that direction there.
Scientists believe tiger sharks spend their daylight hours in deeper water. But their sheer numbers also give the turtles some protection. If there are around 2,000 coming ashore every night, there could be at least 20,000 in the surrounding water. As they wait for their next struggle up onto the sand, the turtles seem focused on the task ahead rather than the danger behind. It's the journey back from the island the next day that poses the greater threat. When tigers lie in wait for weary turtles. Her death is doubly tragic. The tiger's attack has released her unlaid eggs. She hadn't dug a suitable nest. But tens of thousands more are incubating in the sands of the island. They face their own day of reckoning. Rufous night herons come to Rain Island in summer to begin their own breeding season. There are just a few for now, but soon there will be about 1,000. Just like the sharks, they're here to prey on the turtles. Not the adults, but they're soon to hatch young. Turtle nesting is reaching its peak. Nothing like the record of 14,500, but more than 2,000 coming up each night is still a staggering number. This late in the nesting season, body pits are everywhere, and it's hard to find a patch of sand that hasn't already been dug up. Driven by blind instinct, turtles bury one another. And still more are coming. One has dug up an existing nest. It may even be one of her own. For the uncovered hatchlings, this can be a mixed blessing. Lucky ones may find their journey to the surface shortened. Less fortunate ones will be injured by lumbering females. In this crowded birthplace, hatchlings aren't the only victims. The adults also dig up and crush whole clutches of eggs. By morning, it's time for the adults to leave the beach again. As they do so, they leave behind their unintentional acts of destruction. The sun will bake thousands of exposed eggs. That is, if the birds don't get to them first. Overcrowding, sharks, low tides and the burning sun. Nature's war zone presents many hazards. But there's one more. Nests laid too close to the high tide mark risk being flooded. Eggs can withstand a short soaking, but not for long. They will eventually drown. By late January, the wet season has arrived. Summer monsoons bring rain to the island, replacing brown, burned grass with lush greenery. Turtles are still laying, but now just a few hundred a night. The island belongs to the birds, and in particular, to the herons. They've laid their own clutches of eggs and already have hungry hatchlings to feed. For her chicks to survive, this heron needs to find a plentiful supply of prey. But fish aren't what she's here for. She's timed the arrival of her family with the emergence of the baby turtles. In the dead of night, Rain Island's beaches come alive. The waiting hordes erupt from the sand. The nighttime drop in temperature is the signal they've been waiting for. Baby turtles are extremely vulnerable to predators. Their only defense is in darkness and the safety of numbers. It can take a couple of days before they reach the surface. Amazingly, young turtles can dig their way up through more than 2 meters, 6 feet of sand. The remaining energy from the yolk sac will power them for about 90 hours, and then they'll have to begin feeding. Instinct tells them to head for the reflected light from the ocean. The hatchlings face the same obstacles as their parents, but their light weight means they can survive most falls, and they're able to right themselves if they fall on their backs. Their struggle for life doesn't end at the water's edge. It's only just beginning. They're vulnerable to any fish large enough to prey on them. Some scientists estimate that just 1 in 1,000 will reach adulthood. It's a miracle any survive at all. But those that hatch during daylight face even harsher odds. All it takes is for clouds or wind to cool the sand and fool them into heading towards a deadly enemy. The herons. Every afternoon, they begin to gather on the shore in silent anticipation. Responding to the drop in temperature, some hatchlings emerge before sunset. They have no idea what awaits them. The hatchlings are easy pickings for the herons. Like their parents, some will never make it off the island. They must run the gauntlet of the waiting herons. Attracted by movement, they flock to the site of an eruption in gangs. Turtles are swallowed alive and whole. And once caught, escape is rarely possible. It may be a cruel fate, but the young turtles are a vital source of nourishment for the heron chicks. But while their parents are making the most of the unlucky turtles, baby herons face their own predators. Hungry gulls. Eggs or chicks left unattended are fair game. In nature's war zone, life has to be fought for, and there are winners and losers among prey and predators alike. It's a risk the parents must take. They'll gorge themselves on baby turtles until they can take no more. Despite the slaughter, numbers are still on the turtle side. As night comes, more will emerge and find their way to the water. Many will escape Rain Island. Swimming at right angles to the waves, they'll keep going for as long as their reserves will let them. The island's position in deep water helps their chances. It won't take them long to reach the safety of the ocean currents. Exactly where they go from there is a mystery. But in years to come, surviving females will always return. As for the tiger sharks, Richard Fitzpatrick has tagged 2 more. Hopefully the satellite tags will reveal their movements for many months. So far, they've shown that Ripley has stayed around the island for the whole of the nesting season. Ian Bell has retrieved the data from a handful of tags. The technology has given him the first brief glimpse of the turtle's hidden life in the waters around Rain. But now it's time to leave. And so it is for the turtles. It may be 5 to 7 years before they build the reserves to breed again. Although their numbers are in decline in other parts of the world, the northern Great Barrier Reef's green turtle population appears to be holding its own, thanks to Rain Island. In the world's last untamed places, the battle between predator and prey is waged in balance. While that balance remains undisturbed, the battle will define life itself. The generations will return. Nature's war zone will be waiting for them.